And now it's time for Healing from Within with your host, Tony Valen.
Welcome to Healing from Within. I'm your host, Tony Valen. You can contact me, Tony at TonyValen.com, or visit our website, healingfromwithin.net. Follow the show on Twitter, at TVHFW. Find us and like us on Facebook, Healing from Within with Tony Valen. On today's show, we have Delfin Espinosa. He is a return guest. Delfin is a spiritual researcher and soon-to-be author. You can find more about Delfin on Facebook. Just search Delfin Espinosa on Facebook and like his webpage as well. Delfin, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you again. On today's show, we're going to talk about Indigo Children and Indigo Adults. Can you tell everyone what the term indigo means and how people will know what you're talking about when we're talking about indigos?
Indigo, I believe it's more of a more modern term because I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I don't remember hearing the word indigo until like the mid to late 90s or into the 2000s. Basically, an indigo, and they call them indigo children or even star child and so forth. It's pretty much the same thing. Basically, a child born indigo simply means that they're born attuned to the spiritual side of life. They, in fact, a lot of kids nowadays that are, they actually are born remembering their past lives. Basically, indigo is a person, or not necessarily just a child, but grown-ups that are attuned to a higher dimension, a higher frequency. They're basically tuned to the spiritual side of life instead of just kind of being stuck in the box in everyday life, just physical, your daily activities. They're more open and so forth.
Absolutely, yeah. So in other words, indigo people, I say people, children, adults, are people with that actually have a further understanding, have an intuition and an intelligence beyond their years, which is more prevalent among children, or it's more noticeable among children because of their young age. So there are certain traits that indigo children and adults have, and we're going to go through these traits, and maybe you can give us a little further information. I know that one of the traits that they have is they are very strong-willed, independent thinkers, and they seem to go against authority. Tell us about that, and if you have any personal experience with that, because I know I do. Tell me about it. Tell us about it.
Well, yes, it goes way back to, like I said, when I was born in 1962, and I remember one time I was in first grade, my first time actually in first grade. I remember telling my mom that I didn't want to go to school because they weren't teaching me what I wanted to learn. I didn't want to learn about the math and the science and all this. That was just kind of mundane, kind of, all that stuff we can just learn on our own. But the spiritual things, like the big question of why are we here and the purpose of life and so forth. And I remember, even as a little kid, I must have been maybe 6 years old. And one morning, my mom told me that I woke up saying the word purga, P-U-L-G-A, which is like a little bug, for people that don't speak English. It's just like a little bug.
You mean Spanish? Did you mean Spanish?
In Spanish, yeah, we call it pulga. It's like a bug.
A flea.
So anyway,
yeah.
That morning, I woke up saying that, and then that evening, my mom didn't know why I was saying that. Anyway, my dad that evening came home with a little bitty car, a pulga. It was a silver. It looked like one of those James Bond cars, those little silver. It was, I forget what brand it was, like a Volkswagen, I think it was, a little two-door.
Yeah.
And then it finally made sense. That's what a pulga is. He showed up with it, and I also had no idea why I was saying it. I just woke up saying it.
So interesting. So you were intuitive at a young age. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what normally happens you are. What about the part about independent thinkers and against authority? Did you rebel against authority like your parents?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, mostly I rebelled against the system, not necessarily my parents. Like I said, in first grade, my first time in first grade, my first time here, I rebelled against the school, the education system. In fact, a lot of people today, they'll agree it's still the same thing. Nothing's changed. I didn't want to go to school, so in first grade, I would have to go to the bathroom, and they would have to send somebody with me, or otherwise I'd take off and go home, which was like 4 blocks away. It wasn't far. And I, in fact, ended up flunking first grade, but I looked at it the way Einstein said the same thing, that the system didn't flunk him, that he flunked the system. That's what I did. I rebelled against this system, this educational thing that they've got set up to teach all the kids, put them all in a box, and they all learn the same way. I was not a box in the box thinker. I would always get in trouble for talking in class. I would have to write those long sentences. I will not talk, or I will this on the blackboard 100 times, and stuff like that. So it wasn't necessarily that I rebelled against like parents, because I loved my parents. I had a lot of friends and so forth. It was the system and that I rebelled against, that I was so mad at, that I knew there was a much, much better way of doing things. And why were we compelled to be stuck in the box, in a system where they just controlled you, and instead of teaching you, they told you what to believe and what to say, how to think. I mean, this is what society, even today, this is what they try to do.
Right. And I think that everyone's experience for Indigo is different, because just like you, I was the same way. I didn't rebel against my parents, but I did not like school, and I rebelled against school. And same thing with me. I failed the second grade because I was so bored with it. I couldn't care less. And it was during my younger years that I would always skip school. I remember running away from school and spending the day. There was a church near my house that had a stairway, and underneath the stairway there was a little cubby hole that it was like a little housing, and I would spend the day there. I would pretend to go to school, and then right after, if I knew it was time to, get out of school, the school was like a block away, so I could see it. When I saw kids going home, I would go home. But anyway, that's because school was boring to me. I couldn't care less. And but when it came to the parents, just like you, I guess it depends on your childhood. When you're raised in such a happy, loving environment, you don't rebel against those people, even though you may not agree with them. You just love them and accept them. And other people just seem to rebel against everything and anything. Don't you think?
Yeah, I've got another very interesting, funny story that my brother, he also basically was the same way. And what I remember this story that my mom told me that my brother told my cousin and my sister, I believe it was, that they were gonna run to school, and whoever got there first, of course, would win. And so they all, they took off running, and what he did is he kind of hid and went back home. And then another story is that something with a school bus that my brother was asking my mom that he needed some book, something for school, I guess his homework, and that he couldn't find it. And then so he was looking out the window, and once the bus goes by, he says, "Oh, Mom, that's okay. I don't need it anymore."
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he didn't want to go to school either. In fact, he also flunked, or rather I'd say he flunked the system, I think, in first grade. All three of us, I think my younger sister is the only one that never did that.
Oh,
But
really?
all of us basically rebelled. Like my older sister, the only reason she liked to go to school was to go play. So
Yeah. You know, the second trait that we were going to talk about is indigo children, and let's just talk about the children, and I guess we can transition into adults, but indigo children seem to have a wisdom and a level of caring and knowledge beyond their years. So a lot of these kids, and I'm sure everyone is aware because they're everywhere, all these videos on YouTube and specials on TV where these kids will talk about a past life and people they used to know or things they used to do, or they have a certain love of doing something. Can you tell us more about that, or what have you found in your research?
yeah, in fact, not just in my research, but in my life, thinking back, I remember I could be like at a birthday party, like it's supposed to be a happy time, this and that, and what indigos do is a lot of them are empaths, which means they pick up on the feelings and emotions, the energies of other people. So I could be at a birthday party or a happy occasion, and all of a sudden I started getting very sad, and to the point of always wanting to cry. And now when I look back, I realize that I must have been picking up somebody else, some kid there at the party that was feeling like that. And so then I started feeling like that, and I had no idea where it came from. I was simply attuned to their energy and frequency, and so I was picking up on their sadness. And that's what indigo children are able to do that, and so are adults. This is for even adults. You know, they're intuitive, they're empaths, they're mediums. It's the same thing. They're picking up on a frequency, and so they're able to with their mind's eye. Some of them can actually see the person, like somebody that's passed on, as opposed to just sensing or feeling spirit and energies around them. They can actually see it, and then there's the audio where they can hear it, and so forth.
Right. So in other words, it's like they're, I've never liked the word, but psychic, or intuitive. So it depends on, they're using the five clairs. Well, you know what it is.
Yes.
So it depends. And yeah, and I know that as a child, I was very, very sensitive to energy. So I was the same way as you. I would always feel, I was very emotional, and I never understood why I would feel happy. I would feel all these emotions all at the same time, and I always hated being in crowds. And even as an adult now, I still hate being in crowds. I now understand it and protect myself from it a lot better than I used to. But even with protection, I can only take so much of being in a crowd, and then I have to leave because it's draining on me.
Yeah, in fact, I'm still as an adult. I've been working on that, and back to the emotions. I remember, I think mostly in it must have been third grade, I think. After that, I kind of started balancing out a little bit more, because I remember, like I said, I could be at a party or anything, or just out of anything bad or sad that happened, that occurred, or somebody was sick, or somebody was, I was very, very emotional, and I would actually start crying there, and then I remember one time one of my friends said he thought somebody had hit me and this and that and made me cry, and that wasn't the case. I was just picking up on someone's energy, and so I would just kind of the tears would just kind of start falling, and I didn't understand why, or because it wasn't me. I wasn't I was a pretty happy kid, and I had great parents and so forth, but I didn't understand it at that time.
Right. In my experience, as far as the level of wisdom or understanding, when it came to that for me, I have no previous memories that I can refer to, or I never came across anything that I would say, oh, I remember I used to do this and that, or not to my knowledge anyways. But the thing that I do remember is many, many places I would go to, I would think, have I been here before? Because things will look familiar to me. So it's that deja vu. So I'm not sure how that works or if that is part of being indigo, but that's something that I definitely felt. Did you ever feel like that?
Oh yes, that's like I was saying earlier. Instead of saying indigo, you can just say basically a person that's spiritual, because they basically start off as they call them indigo children or star children, but eventually they grow up and become us. And from research, things like in the 1960s, that's when they started showing up more and more. But the ones that are born back then were not completely attuned, like we were saying. The kids today are remembering their past lives and are so much more attuned and so much more powerful in a sense because of our Earth. Our frequency has been changing and getting better and better, and so we're able to tune in to the spiritual side of life a lot easier now than we were back then. And the other thing, of course, is that back then I didn't know anybody that I knew I was different. I just didn't know why I was different, and I just didn't understand it. And so it wasn't really, talked about back then, and so we just kind of went along, and I just knew things were, I wasn't, because I would ask adults questions that they would just kind of stare at you and where did that come from,
Right, yeah. And as far as the level of wisdom, level of understanding, I've always been for the underdog. I've always looked at people that were going against the current like me. Like, for instance, I think everyone was going left and then I'd go right or vice versa. And I always seemed to defend people that were not the popular ones and whatever. And I always rebelled against the popular kids. I couldn't care less about them or care to be a part of them or anything. And that went through my life pretty much until now that I'm older and I understand everything. I accept everyone for who they are. But even now, I have to tell you that if I am doing something like, for instance, this radio show, I'm not doing it because I want attention. I'm doing it because I want to spread education or information to people. But to say that I'm in it because I want people to know me or whatever, that is the furthest thing from my mind. What do you think? Are you the same way?
Yeah, you still want to help society. That's what you want to do. That's what I was thinking of as you were talking, that back then, going back to, once again, third grade, fourth grade, where I was still kind of unbalanced. And I also, even today, I hate this bully system kind of thing, and as kids in grade school and even in high school, there's, even today we still have the bullies, and it's sad that some of them go to the point where they're so bullied that they end up committing suicide.
Yeah.
I was more of a fighter in a sense. In fact, I remember, without saying any names, a couple of kids that, different ones, about 2 or 3 of them, back in, third, fourth grade and so forth. I remember this one kid was picking on me after PE, that afternoon, and we had finished playing, and we were going to the restroom and so forth and drink water and then go back to class. And so I remember, I forget exactly what he was doing, but he was just picking on me, being a bully. So I just, for no reason, I just kicked him in the chin and the lower leg as hard as I could, and went on, and basically he started crying and so forth, but he never picked on me again.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be a bully. I just wanted it to stop and just go. I had nothing against him. I didn't hate him. I just knew that it was that was wrong. You're not supposed to be bullying people.
Right. I know, exactly. I know that for Indigo children, traditional parenting and discipline does not phase them in any way whatsoever, probably because they are at a higher frequency and we're being affected by negative energy, both machine and human.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, what do you have, if anyone that has an Indigo child, what would you recommend as a parenting skill that from your research? Have you found anything that you can share?
Well, actually, yes. In fact, there's a lot of shows on TV that now that they're coming out now. There's more and more now. Like we were saying, how parents when they have an Indigo child, the parent may not themselves be like that, so they don't understand it, and so they're confused. So they end up having to go to other intuitives and so forth, or people that understand. Because, like I said earlier, an Indigo child or adult is mostly it's spiritual. They're a spiritual person. They're attuned to the love, the peace, the joy, and they see the world through multicolored instead of a black and white being in the box kind of thing, like society tries to keep people, like the educational, like we talked about. Yeah, parents who have a child like that, I definitely suggest they seek out someone else who is like them. In fact, I think I told you about this. We talked about this a few weeks back. The new show that is on Monday nights about these kids that are very special. They're geniuses. In fact, it's based on a true story. It shows Monday nights, and he has an IQ of, I believe it's 196. And the reason that they are like that is because they are attuned to, like Einstein was, to they're out-of-the-box thinkers. They think for themselves. Their wheel in their mind, it's always rolling. They're always, coming up with things and inspiration. In fact, that's where it all comes from. Your intelligence doesn't come from it's just your brain. Your brain's just an organ, but outside of that realm into the spiritual, that is where the true intelligence comes from. And that's why these kids, the society labels them with all kinds of different ADD and ADHD and this and that, but they want to make, or they want the parents to believe that their child is broken, and it's not their child that's broken, it's society that's broken.
Yeah, which was bringing me to my next point that I was going to ask about and discuss with you, that Indigo children are emotionally charged all the time. They have anxieties, depressions, and they may even have temper tantrums if they're not energetically balanced. So, I don't know how people think about this, and I know it's a new idea to the general public, but don't you think children like that would benefit, or actually everyone would benefit, if everyone would start their day with a little meditation?
Yes, that's what I was going to say is back when I was just out of high school, because I knew I had what society labels, like I said, ADHD. I had that. That's why I was as a kid. My wheels were always turning, even though I was a very quiet introvert. And that's another thing, that indigos tend to be very introverted. But if you can imagine why, that they have so much wisdom beyond their years. They see things a whole lot different than society. So if they talk to someone who doesn't understand them, they're going to think they're weird, they're strange, and so they just kind of keep to themselves. And like you said, that you go home from school and go into that little place where you felt safe, and I kind of did the same thing. So we had a garage back then, and that's where I'd go, and I'd stay there. And I remember like water. I have always loved water. I would fill a little tub with with water, or my mom used to do laundry with, and then I would stay there and spend a whole lot of time like that, and just they tend to be, I guess in a sense, loners. And the thing about indigo children or spiritual people, they are very, like we could say, very, they're emotional and so forth, and they can have all kinds of anxiety, depression, and so forth. And a lot of times, though, like I said, like with me and my sadness, and I was a happy kid, but all of a sudden I would pick up on that, and even as an adult now, I try to stay away. I never have liked big old gatherings where there's too many people there. Even going to Walmart, it'll get me anxious sometimes, and I keep having to remind myself that it's not me. I'm picking up somebody else's anxieties, and so it takes a lot of like we said, meditation. I've been meditating since back in the 1980s, and it's very, very simple in the sense that the way I learned it is that basically you just lie down. What worked best for me was lying down in bed and then like tensing up your toes and your feet, just one step at a time, going from your feet all the way up to your head, where you tense it for like 5 seconds and then you let it go. Then you go up a little higher, and same thing all the way up to your face and all that. You tense it up for like 5 seconds and release, and then eventually you're able to meditate, relax, just by anywhere you are. You get used to relaxing, meditating, and that is one of the most powerful things that you can do is meditate. Because basically what you're doing is that you're letting go of this conscious thought that we have and allowing the free flow spirit and knowledge, intuition, everything to come into you. And that's why meditation is very, very important.
Yeah. And, that's the thing about it is that when it comes to, you were talking about indigos having ADD or ADHD. I'm not sure if this is part of it, but I know that for me, ever since I was a kid, and even now, and I have to be conscious and control myself, that people will be talking to me, and as they're talking to me, I already know what they're going to say. So I either finish their sentences for them, or I'm sitting there having a complete anxiety meltdown because they're not talking fast enough for me. It's like, oh my God, for Pete's sake, finish what you have to say. You're driving me crazy. And it's just because I already know what they're going to say. I know the conversation is basically over. They don't even need to tell me because I know what they're thinking or saying. So do you feel that way, or do you experience that?
Yes, I still experience that. In fact, I remember back when we were still living in Texas that one of our friends, they had a 4 or 5 year old boy, just like 5 years old, and he could actually read their thoughts, and he would like freak out their parents because they didn't know why he was able to do that. How can he, he was just like, he was an indigo, obviously an indigo child. He could actually tune in through the frequencies, because thoughts, like we said last time on the show, a thought has a frequency. And like a radio receiver, if you are tuned into that frequency, you are able to pick up on that. That's how the psychic world works. They're able to pick up, because everything, this whole, like we said last time on Nikola Tesla, how he realized that everything is it's frequency. Energy, frequency, vibration, and so that's how people that are, I guess, spiritual, like a lot of us. Of course, there's different gifts. Some are able to do things better than others. It just depends on what your gift is. But yeah, the little boy could actually, literally know exactly what they were thinking. They didn't even have to speak.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that also. As indigo children and adults usually have problems with food and environmental sensitivities, since they're finely tuned in. And the thing about it is that I don't know how to describe this to anyone, but for me, and I've already been tested by doctors and everything, and they say I'm fine, that nothing's wrong with me. But the thing that kills me is that there are times when I can eat, and have no problem whatsoever. But then other days I can have just a cracker and I'll have massive indigestion. So I'm not quite sure what the deal is with my system, but do you seem to have problems with food?
Well, first of all, going back to allergies, I remember my dad also, we kind of have the same, it seems like we have the same system because he was highly allergic or highly sensitive to like perfumes, cologne, stuff like that. I'm exactly the same way. I've never really been able to use any of that because I'll start either sneezing. We've changed our diet more to a whole foods because up here in Indianapolis, there's a lot of whole foods, organic food places where we can go and get things that are free of all the pesticides and so forth that the farmers or some of them use to kill all the bugs and so forth. But anyways, I notice now that whenever I eat something that has like too much sugar in it, I will immediately start sneezing. And so I've been able, or my system has been getting, physically speaking, I guess, the body, I've been getting more used to eating healthy stuff. And if you look at your diet and see, and you can do the research, our diet is one of the main problems that has to do with our health. And so if you're eating stuff that is processed, all these chemicals, in other words, if you look at a label at the store, whatever you pick up, if it reads, somebody said once, if it reads like a chemistry, a science experiment, then you shouldn't be eating it.
Yeah, easier said than done. You know, the hardest thing for me is going out and finding what is healthy, because there's so much out there, and I don't know, Delfin. I tend to not trust labels on the products that are being sold. How trustworthy do you think they are?
And depending on where you go, if you go to I don't want to say any names, but that's why I go to, up here we have farmers that actually grow their stuff organically, and those are very kind of few and far between because the majority of our food is grown the processed way. It's a business instead of back then the farmers, a lot of them had their own farms, and they ate fresh and so forth out of their own gardens. And in fact, even my parents, I remember growing up, they always had a garden in the backyard, and we would grow just different kind of vegetables. And if you tasted a real fresh organic vegetable, you can tell the difference automatically from when you buy one at the store that isn't organic. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And then even health-wise, there's a very, very big difference because what happens even if you try to eat healthy, you go to a basic store and get your fruits and vegetables, you're still not eating as healthy as you really should because it's got all these chemicals, all this either preservatives and the frozen food or the chemicals that were sprayed on them back on the farms, and so it stays with them. And then when you eat it, of course, it's all going into you, and so your body's having to they're getting very little nutrition, and then having to fight off all these toxins that were put on there.
Right. Yeah. The other trait that I was looking at, or information from what you and I have discussed in the past, is that indigo children seem to appear to be self-centered and demanding if their true if their needs are not met, which is not the way they are. And to me, that's kind of a relief because I have to be totally honest. I'm that way. If I have something that I need to accomplish, I push and I push and I push. And I don't mean to be that way, but I feel driven to get what I have to get done first in front of everyone. I mean, so for me to think that that's one of the traits, what do you think of that? Do you think that's any truth to that?
Yeah, I can recall too that even now that I'm somewhat, I would say, more balanced out. And when I'm doing something, I have to really focus on what I'm doing. Because as indigos or spiritual people, our mind's always going, and so we have a hard time staying focused on one thing. And so if somebody's asking you all these other questions and this and that, and you get very irritated. I still do the same. It happens to me, and I have to stay focused and realize that it's okay. Just it all works out. Just continue. Just do what you're doing, and we can come across as being angry at the person or something like that, but it's not that that we don't. In a sense, we care a whole lot. We care in a sense if you're unbalanced. That's like we talked about earlier. The emotional. If you're off balance, then you're gonna fly out the handle a whole lot quicker than if you're able to balance out. In fact, going back to what helped me a lot was instead of being constantly, the wheels going and going and going, I picked up a computer chessboard back in the 80-something, 84, something like that, when they started coming out. And so I kind of used my computer chessboard to train myself to think, or to slow down rather, and focus, and not be going 100 miles an hour thinking of everything else. Because to play chess, especially if you're playing a computer, you have to really, really think about your moves, or you're going to lose very quickly and all the time. And I remember towards the end of my training, I guess, what I was doing with myself, I remember this one time where I beat the computer at least twice. I want to say maybe even 3 times in a row. Once I finally started settling down, and because your thought process is so fast, and like in a chess, what you're going to do, but you need to really stay focused. And life in general, as I tell Allison, that the faster you go in trying to make decisions, you're going to have a greater chance that you're going to make the wrong one. In fact, in school, I remember too that when you take a test, this is something else about indigos. Whenever there's a task, a chore, something, a test, that they just thought of, there's a test. You start getting all this, you get out of focus, and your mind starts going 100 miles an hour. And then if you're trying to take a test when you're all going every which way, you're not going to do good on the test because you're not focused on the questions that are being asked. And so I noticed that when, like when you get your test back and you realize, I knew this, and then you see it because totally different, because you're calm and at peace. And once again, going back to the meditation, you're able to you're calm. You can read the question, and it'll read totally different to you because you're seeing it from a different point of view, as opposed to being all stressed out and so forth.
Yeah, and it just seems for me. I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. It just seems like for me, I agree with you that, well, when it comes to testing, I'm a horrible tester. And I think it's just the fact that I feel like I'm under a microscope and that I have to perform a certain way. And once again, for me, it's kind of the rebelling thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I feel like when I'm tested, instead of really, it's not about my ability to do something. It's about judging me. And I totally resent being judged. So when it comes to testing, I don't do well with that. And the reason that I feel that it's not the testing, but it's just the feeling behind it, the judgment. For me, I feel when it comes to working under pressure, 85 to 90% of the time, I do better when I'm under pressure. Because if I have time to think, I am all over the place. I have a gazillion ideas and I can't seem to focus. But if I have 15 to 10 minutes to get something done, I know that I have to make a choice and I have to get going. And that's the way I operate, which is, I don't know how anyone else feels about that, but that's the way I operate.
Yeah, mine.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say mine is I realize I can do certain things like when you play video games and stuff like that where you have to react real fast. I can do that, but when it comes down to like taking a test or something that you're a chore that you have to do, I have to be relaxed and then let the knowledge and so forth, everything flow through. And in that sense, even though your thoughts are coming through, your answers are coming through, you'll do better on the test of whatever it is you're doing. And the thing about it is, in fact, I remember back in nursing school, we had this one student that had a very her test anxiety was very, very high. In fact, when we went there, she couldn't eat at all or anything because of the anxiety. In fact, we have a friend of ours too right now that has not been able to pass her driving test for the same reason. They have test anxiety, and so all this, when you have, what I would suggest is to, especially for those people, is to learn to meditate and to get into the habit of focusing their thoughts in a positive direction and not being overwhelmed by whatever, if it's a test or an assignment in school or at work or something, not become overwhelmed, because when that happens, then you are going to completely mess up because you're not going to be, it's like I said earlier, when you get your test back and you're calm and peaceful, you can see, you knew all the answers, you just couldn't bring them out because of the anxiety that was there. It was blocking your flow, and so that's why they always say to go with your first instinct whenever you're taking a test. Don't go back and change your answers. You're rethinking yourself, because basically that's the thing with indigo, the spiritual. When you're tuned to a higher frequency, you can remember your answers. It'll be there for you. But if you start second guessing, is more of a conscious thing that you're blocking off the flow, and you're consciously deciding, well, I think this is better, or I think this is better. The thing with the spiritual, the subconscious, so forth, it doesn't have to think. It just, that's why it's called knowing. They just know, like intuitive. They just know. They just feel. They sense that it's there, instead of having to figure out like a math problem or something that you gotta. It's just, the answer is just there. You just have to trust. That's the other thing with intuitive. They need to learn to trust their instincts, their information that they're receiving, that it's accurate, and that takes time to learn to trust that. But as they learn to trust the intuition, the information, and so forth, they become more and more accurate. But like I said before, the meditation, that's why it's so very, very important to be able to find that peaceful, calm place. So whenever you're under some kind of anxiety, some kind of stressful situation, you can automatically go back to that place and be calm again, and whatever happens to be in the Walmart, like me, like the problems that I was saying, of being too picking up on other people's frequencies or what have you. Learn to just calm down. It's okay, and just go, just go with the flow, I guess.
Go with the flow, yeah. And, that's the thing about it. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, and one of the final points I wanted to talk about was I can't help it, and this is nothing against my parents. God bless them. They were wonderful parents, and they gave me the best childhood, and the same for you. But we were not raised in an environment where people understood this or knew about it, and even the times that we grew up in, it was not known. But I can't help but think that how advanced I would have been and you would have been, or me personally, I'm talking about me, how advanced
Yes.
I would have been if only I would have received what I needed, which was encouragement. The guidance and encouragement to go with what I'm going, because I know that as a very young child, I always saw auras around people. I always saw energy fields and whatever. And when I started talking about it to my parents, the only thing that I was told was that I should not talk about it, that it was coming from the devil and that people are going to think you're crazy. But the thing that didn't make sense to me as a child is they're telling me not to acknowledge this. However, when I look at all the icons and the saints and the Catholic and whatever, there's always these little glowing things around their head, the halos or whatever. So it never made sense to me, but I shut down because I was told to shut down. And it wasn't until I was well into my 30s that I ended up waking up and realizing I need to follow my path. This is my path. Do you have a similar experience? I know you do.
Yeah, like I said earlier, we grew up in the 60s and 70s, and even today, there's a lot of people that still don't understand. If you go down to in the city, go down to the mall and just ask people, do you know what? In fact, they did that on a show. They asked people, do you know what an indigo child is? And the majority had no idea what. They had never heard about it. And so, and going back to now that I think of the hippie age, back in the late 60s and what's that?
Yeah, the flower children, the flower children, blah blah blah.
The free and the free love and so forth. And now that I am older and I've researched a whole lot of different topics, but I can see now where they were actually on the right direction. And the reason that society, or rather, let's say the government, did not like the hippie stage is because government, like religion, like the system that puts them in a box, that is exactly what all this is. It's a control thing. And that's why even today, it's like, for example, a slave. A slave can only be kept a slave as long as that person that is controlling them can manipulate them, manipulate their thinking, and so forth. And it's like they use the how they train the elephants for the circus. When they're little bitty elephants, a baby elephant, they tie a chain to them so they can't get away.
Yeah.
And then as an adult elephant, all they need to do is have a little rope or anything, any little thing that they can feel that their foot is caught up on. That elephant could easily break that rope or whatever it is they used to try. But it's in this thinking that's been established through the years of conditioning that I am stuck in this cell, in this prison, I've got these chains on me. I can't go anywhere. I can't, their thinking has been basically manipulated. And so that's where the indigo, the spiritual people, back to the hippies, they didn't like them because they couldn't control them because they were free thinkers. And that is the big key there, that indigo or spiritual people are free thinkers. We think for ourselves, and that's why we rebel against religion and all this society of being put in a box, because we are not in a box. You can't put a spirit in a box. It is too big for the box. You can't put like God is spirit. You can't put God in a church building. He's too big for a church building. You know, he's maybe all the universe, everything gets, you know. It's the same thing with the spirit, and that's why, like I say, these IQ tests and intelligence, it's not found in the brain. It is outside. It's a spiritual thing. You can't measure that. You can't weigh that, and so that's where I mean, all this labeling kids their ADHD or ADD and what have you. It's just simply another form of basic control that they want to keep on controlling the society, and that's why they fear people like what we do, that we are free thinkers and we're encouraging others to think for themselves. And that's the other thing that's wrong with the school system, as I found out way back in first grade, that they want to, instead of educating you, they want to force you to think like they do and not be a free thinker. And so it all kind of goes back to the same thing of controlling and not controlling. And someone who's a free spirit can't be controlled. And basically that's what the government and society, that's what they fear, because they can't control them.
Right. And and that's, unfortunately, that's the way a lot of the people in the country are. They don't seem to think for themselves. They just, I don't know. I just don't understand people at times. I wish I could, but I don't.
As you mentioned, religion, different, many different, denominations. Kind of, if they really do their research, they will find that a lot of their doctrines and what have you, they all have an origin of from a control sense of view, instead of they're not anything basically that is wanting to enslave you, control you, dominate you. It's from the dark side, something that is free, that's love, that's peace, that's working together, and not I'm better than you. All that is from the light. It's from God. It's free. It's like it mentions in the Bible that where Jesus told him that he was that if you put all your burdens on him, that he would that the truth will set you free.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, in fact, going back to that, that's why the Bible has so many books that are missing, because those books are the ones that contain all this knowledge of how to be tuned into the higher dimension, the higher self, basically being tuned with God and having a one-on-one relationship with God through His Spirit, as opposed to going through the middleman, which is the ministry and so forth. In fact, Jesus Himself told them that they don't need to have a middleman. They just go directly. You have a direct line to God, the Great Spirit, the Father, however you want to. You don't have to go through another means.
Yeah, that's true. And for final thoughts, also just to ask you, I also know that Indigo Children and Adults seem to have, and I'm talking from my own experience, if someone wants me to do something, I need to know why. It's not just a matter of telling me you have to do this. You have to tell me why and what the purpose is. And Lord help me that it's not a repetitive thing, because it will drive me crazy. What do you think?
That's it. That's what I was going to say too, that indigos, like we keep saying, are spiritual people. Their wheels are always turning. So I remember back in being like 7 years old, I think, and my grandfather was adding on to my parents' house, like the kitchen and so forth. He was extending the house, and I was watching him, and I thought all this building and creating was so awesome and fabulous, and I was wanting to know why do you do things this way? Why that way? Or can we do it this way? Is it going to be better if we do it this way? And always, I wanted to know why. I wanted to understand it. I didn't want someone to just tell it to me. I wanted to understand it. And so for like this show that I mentioned about on Mondays, there's exactly the same way. If they don't understand something, if there's a problem facing them and they just can't quite solve it, it irritates them, it frustrates them, and if anybody comes around and tries to talk to them, they're so emotionally charged, I guess, that they kind of bark back or leave me alone or this or that, and it's because they're so focused on this problem. And once the solution to that problem, once they figure that out, it's like, ooh, they're being freed again. And that problem is like that elephant with that chain. It's holding them there like a slave. But once they figure it out, it's like they're released and they're happy again. And, oh, another problem solved. And they're able to move on. And that's kind of how I've always been, too.
Yeah, that is true. Well, Delfin, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us and talking to us about Indigo Children and Indigo Adults. You can get more information about Delfin if you go to Facebook. Just go into Facebook, search for Delfin Espinosa. Delfin is a spiritual researcher and soon-to-be author. You are listening to Healing from Within with Tony Valen here on Blog Talk Radio, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. Visit our website, healingfromwithin.net. Contact me directly, tony@tonyvalen.com, and follow us on Twitter @TVHFW. The show is available on iTunes and YouTube, Healing from Within with Tony Valen. Thank you so much to everyone. Love and light from all of us here at Healing from Within.